Hi everyone. Have you ever heard about a situation where a criminal case goes unsolved? As bad as that sounds, crime has become part of our society, and what that means that there would be law enforcement, and cops there to make sure these cases do not go unsolved and cause problems for society. Examples of criminal cases that have occurred throughout the years include the Lindbergh kidnapping, which involves the kidnapping of Lindbergh Jr., who was the son of a famous aviator, Lindbergh. Fortunately, this case was solved, but Lindbergh Jr. was not found alive, sadly. A case which has not been solved throughout the years is the case of D.B. Cooper. This crime occurred in 1971, and after all the investigations, it still has not been solved. You might be wondering who D.B. Cooper is. According to the FBI, they did not have any solid descriptions or information about who exactly D.B. Cooper was, but he used a bomb threat to hijack a plane going from Portland to Seattle. At this time, proof of identity was not required much, so it made the investigation even harder. This event occurred on November 24th, 1971, when Dan Cooper boarded a flight which had a total of 42 people. This included 36 passengers, which included Dan Cooper himself and six crew members. Getting aboard the flight, Dan Cooper had several cigars with him, and I am guessing he was able to do this because at the time it was not really enforced that you could not have such things with you. During the flight, Dan Cooper took a note and passed it to the attendant, and in this note it had a message saying that he had a bomb. He proceeded to show the attendant a box or a case filled with wires and sticks. The attendant took this information to the pilots and told them what they were dealing with. Then Cooper requested that they meet some demands, and his demands were $200,000 in $20 bills, which I find oddly specific, and four parachutes. The attendants and the pilots had no choice but to accept his demands. So they told the attendant to go back and tell him that they have fully accepted his demands. Getting the money was going to take a while since it was $200,000, and that was a huge amount of money back then. So the pilots decided to circle up in the air so they could get the money ready and give it to DB Cooper. After a couple of hours, the money was made ready and the trade began. The plane landed in Seattle safely, and the passengers and half the crew members were allowed to leave the plane. DB Cooper got his demands he requested, and he also requested that half of the crew that took the plane with to Seattle stay along with him. He told them his plan, and his plan involved him flying to Mexico City with this crew. The crew made it clear to him that this was not possible due to the limitations of the airplane, but he requested that they find a way to make it work. And the only way they could get this to work was fuel the plane in Wash, uh, Washington for some hours, and then fuel the plane again when it gets to Nevada. So after a couple of hours, the plane gets ready and they take off. Cooper requested that the plane flies lower than 10,000 feet and at a speed under 200 knots. While the crew was in the cockpit during the flight, Cooper decided to jump out of at Cooper decided to lower the stairs at the back of the plane, and he jumped out. The plane kept on going to Nevada, and eventually it got there safely. The FBI and other forms of law enforcement were there to seize D.B. Cooper, but he was not anywhere to be found. The crew realized that uh, during the flight, a message popped up, and this message said that the stairs at the back of the flight were being opened, but I'm guessing they didn't pay much attention to it because they did not realize that Cooper had jumped off the plane. According to the FBI, Cooper jumped out of the plane during a rainstorm at nighttime. His exact location after he jumped out could not be figured out, but it was said he dropped somewhere over a forest. Also, according to the FBI, they were not sure he survived the jump because two of the parachutes he took along with him were non-steerable parachutes. The FBI decided to collect evidence and went on went full in into the investigations. Underground searches were made and interviews were conducted to try and find Cooper, but all these trails led to dead ends. The general consensus of the case was that Cooper did not survive the jump because he jumped out during a storm when there amidst 200 miles per hour speed winds, and he would not and he did not have the chance. He probably did not have the chance to open his parachute. They also came to a conclusion that landing in a forest late at night is very dangerous if you do not have the gear. And all Cooper had on when he jumped out was a trench coat, a suit, and a hat, and that is not really ideal for jumping off a plane amidst 200-mile-per-hour winds into a forest during uh, when it was raining very hard. After several years of investigations, nothing really came out of it, and the FBI were giving up on the case. After a couple of years, a boy camping with his family found $5,800 buried in the ground on the banks of Washington's River. The serial numbers were found to link to Cooper's case. However, this location was miles away from Cooper's suspected jump zone. Overall, the case of D.B. Cooper was never really solved and has been a mystery since 1971. The case was officially closed by the FBI in 2016. Thank you.